He said, verse 15, "We have not an high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin." Now, that's significant. He came down from heaven and dwelt in one of these old bodies. And he was tempted with everything that we're tempted in all the same ways. I've mentioned before that sometimes when you read about Christ, God in the flesh, sometimes we have in our minds that it's like Superman, Clark Kent. When Superman is Superman, he is invulnerable. He has all these amazing powers. He can fly. When he's Clark Kent, he can still do all those things. He just is hiding it, right? He's still invulnerable when he's dressed like Clark Kent. And so he doesn't have to worry about anything. Sometimes we view Christ, God in the flesh, like that. Like when he was here in the flesh, he's still God and he is still God. But we don't think of the fact that when he was here and he was being tempted, he had every possibility of falling to any of those temptations. The possibility was there that Christ would have made the wrong decision. He's God in the flesh, but he's not invulnerable to temptation while he's here. It's just that he made the right decision in every single instant. He was sinlessly perfect. If not, what was the point of that? If while he's God in the flesh, it's not possible for him to even sin, that's not temptation. And so, putting himself in that position and taking on one of these old bodies and facing all of those things that we face, opening up the possibility that he would have made a mistake, else that's not temptation. But he was tempted in all points in the same way we are. And so, when he's in that body, and it's hard for us to understand. He's 100% God, he's 100% man when he's in that body. And I know 200% doesn't make sense to us. He's not half and half. He's all God and all man. And so he made all the right decisions the entire time he was here, lived a life that was sinlessly perfect, but he faced the same temptations. He had the same feelings, the same emotions that you and I deal with every day. That's how he is then able to go and be our advocate with the Father. So it's significant that he says that our high priest is not this high priest that's completely separated from us and doesn't even know what life is like. He just knows what you're supposed to do and supposed to be. How many times have you kind of felt that way with different things? Maybe it's a physical thing we're dealing with or a different job, and you say, you have no idea what my life is like, or you don't know what it's like for me to try to do this job. Sometimes we say, oh, teachers have it easy, right? And any of you who have ever been a teacher or are teachers, you know that's the biggest lie ever, to say, oh, what an easy job for a teacher. You got summers off and you got all those different holidays, and you just work from 8 to 3 every day. Is that right, teachers? Anybody that's ever taught? That's not right at all, is it? You're working about 30 hours a day when you're a teacher. And so it's not like you have someone who is, we say all the time, some of these people that make rules and regulations for the school system, they've never been in a classroom. They don't know the effects of these different rules and regulations that they're putting in place. And meanwhile, the teachers are screaming, this doesn't work. We need to do this differently. But the teacher's not in a high enough position to make those changes. So they just say, no, we've got it all figured out. You just do it this way. Meanwhile, the teacher that's right there on the front line says this doesn't work. So what a blessing it is that our high priest, that the one who makes the rules and then judges us according to the rules, came to this earth. He came to the front lines. He came to this earth and he lived as one of us. And he felt all the same feelings that we feel. He dealt with all the same emotions. He was tempted in all the same ways that we're tempted. And then He's able to see this is how they're living. These are the things they're dealing with. And so when I command them to be faithful to me or to resist them to this temptation or that temptation, I know what it's like to resist those temptations. Sometimes I don't know if we fully realize what that means, that He came to this earth and dwelt in the flesh, that our high priest was tempted in all points like as we are. It would be a blessing if everyone who is in a position of authority knew the exact experiences of everyone below them in any job, in any career, right? It would make them so much more effective a leader if they knew firsthand the experiences of every person below them, right? Well, that's what we have in Christ. The most important thing we'll ever strive for is our soul's salvation and that home in heaven. And the one who is the authority in those matters, He came and experienced all of this from our perspective. What a blessing. That God not only created us, but then God the Son came to this earth and experienced it from our perspective. See, it's different if God creates everything. And you can kind of imagine how if God created the earth, He put us on the earth, and then He sits back and says, I don't understand. Why do they keep making the wrong decisions? I give them everything. I promise them a home. Come back to me. Why do they keep sinning? Why are they not doing everything I told them to do all the time? It doesn't make any sense. And He's right. It doesn't make any sense. But when Christ comes down, and God in the flesh comes down and experiences it from our perspective, and then He can go and be our advocate with the Father. So when the Father says, why do they keep sinning? And He says, look, I've been there. I can tell you these are the reasons. They're being tempted in all these different ways. They're feeling all these emotions. They're sad for these reasons. They're happy for these reasons. They have false happiness for these reasons. They're building themselves up in their minds for these reasons. And He says, I know why it is that they're trying to live a life for them rather than living a life for you. He's our advocate with the Father. What a blessing that is, that God understands us from our perspective. And doesn't just sit up in heaven saying, you dirty sinners, why do you keep messing up? Right? He knows why we keep messing up, because He has faced those temptations, but He didn't mess up.
Righteous judgments. He can make them.
Now see, that on our side of things, look at what He says. Seeing then that we have a great high priest that has passed into the heavens, Jesus the Son of God, let us hold fast our profession. We have not a high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore come boldly unto the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. How do we come boldly into the throne of grace? What do we do on our side of things to come boldly into the throne of grace? Yes, 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 and yes, right? All of those things. He came to this earth to experience everything from our perspective, to face all the things that we face, and then returned to be our advocate. Now, the difference with us is that when we go from this earth to that realm, that's a one-way trip. We're not going to come back. We're not going to go experience that and then come back and tell everybody, look, I've experienced that side of things. This is what we need to do. We're not going to be able to do that. He told us what we needed to do. He knew it was going to be a one-way trip for us. He has told us in His Word how to live, what to do, what not to do, how to treat others, how to treat ourselves. And so our task now is to, again, going back to that part that is us, that inward, that soul, the part that is actually us, not this old body. Our part is to focus on spiritual things, to try and have the mind of God, the mind of Christ, to prepare ourselves for that one-way trip. He came and experienced everything from our perspective. So while we're on this side of things, we need to, as much as within our power, as much as is within our power, put our minds in His perspective. So then when I face temptation, if I'm able to look at it from the way God would look at it, instead of, well, I would really enjoy doing this, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. If I would look at it from God's perspective, I would not fall to that temptation. Now, we're not going to be perfect in doing that, but that ought to be what we're striving for. That ought to be our mentality. Does that make sense? Was this any help to anybody this morning? All right. Appreciate the comments and appreciate your attention.